hope everyone is doing all right. Let's talk about the Cohen hearings. Now, the Cohen hearings ended up being 5 hours long, almost 6 hours long. And so I'm going to break that up into 3 shows because there are various elements of it that I want to talk about and discuss. The first, it's going to be 3 shows. I'm sorry. I'm thinking another thought came into my head when I first started, and all of a sudden it's kind of scrambled how I want to do the show. But long story short, Michael Cohen lied to Congress, and Michael Cohen is going to go to prison for lying to Congress. But with Democrats being in power, they want to bring it back for hearings because they want to talk more about Trump and use this as a political hatchet. This person right here, for the last year or so, has said that the Trump-Russia collusion conspiracy has been somewhat overdrawn. It was a conspiracy pushed forth by the Democratic Party after they lost the election in order to explain why they lost to a reality show host who raised half of the money as Hillary Clinton raised in that race. They did not want to engage on this economic and political failures that pushed human beings to throw themselves off the side of the boat and vote for Donald Trump. Instead, it was easier and far more politically astute or politically advantageous to just scream, Russia! Trump and Russia. Trump and Vladimir Putin. Trump is having a hybrid baby with Vladimir Putin. Just conspiracy theories. Rachel Maddow has come out with one show after the next for the past year and a half, screaming to high heaven that Trump and Russia are somehow related. And this goes everything to Iranians, to business pursuits, to her having his taxes and bizarre stuff. And yet she runs with it. Because there's a population who is terrified of Donald Trump in that office, and they love people hitting him, even if what they're hitting him on is not necessarily all that accurate or legit. And the fact that it keeps getting proven false over and over and over again, and yet it lives. And yet it lives. So Cohen goes to the hearings. I have to admit, these hearings are utterly and entirely fascinating. Cohen, in this particular video, I'm going to go through elements where Cohen dismantles the Russia conspiracy stuff. My point that I was making prior was that all of this stuff has been started out of this conspiracy. Like the fruit of all of this. These hearings are a product of the conspiracy, with various elements of the press and the political class engaging in essentially an unsubstantiated assault on the presidency here. Now, I say that to say this. What has taken place here in this hearing has nothing to do with Trump and Russia conspiracy. It has everything to do with finding hit points to attack Trump. Cohen may dismantle elements of the Russia-Trump conspiracy, but he does Trump no favors here. I never had any idea or I was never against the idea that Donald Trump may have been doing something illegal. And that doesn't shock me in the least. My issue has always been the specific Trump colluding with Vladimir Putin. And kind of backing me up on this idea, I think I've said on multiple occasions, if you tell me that there's something screwy going on from the standpoint of some kind of business relationship between Trump and Russia, I will believe it. If you tell me that there is some kind of business stuff going on or illegal stuff going on from the standpoint of Trump's businesses, I can also believe that. Again, my issue is just the Trump-Russia stuff. Cohen comes in and essentially gives a display of criminality of Donald Trump. Just criminality, bad behavior, and even gets to the point of saying that there are cases that are against Trump that have not necessarily been expressed to the public yet going on in New York. He did not do Trump any favors in this testimony, even though simultaneously dismantling elements of Trump and Russia that the media has put forth. And so I'm going to go through in this video elements of the Trump-Russia stuff that Cohen puts a knife in and dismantles. In other videos, I want to go into elements where where Cohen is putting a knife in Donald Trump, going through criminal elements that have taken place from the standpoint of Donald Trump's career since he's been working with Donald Trump, including and up until the point of the hush money paid to Stormy Daniels with maybe a pain in Donald Trump's ass, because apparently that is illegal to do. Is there anything else I want to say on that? I don't think there's anything else I want to say on that. I feel like there's something else that I'm missing. The fact of the matter is, this has been a slow bleed and a war of attrition on Trump. I said multiple times over the course of a few years that this particular investigation has been, someone put a knife in this kind of war of attrition. They want to scream Russia because they don't want to deal and engage with the political elements of the party itself. They don't want to deal, I would say the economic, more so, elements of the reason why people chose Trump in the first place. This is a political assault. This is somewhat of a political attack because it will have political consequences and the effects on Trump. I always ask people, why did Bill Clinton go to prison? I'm sorry, not go to prison, but why did Bill Clinton get impeached? And what was the original case against Bill Clinton on? And I suspect the same thing was happening here. You know, however this started, this goes into elements that have nothing to do with how it started, and they're just digging for criminal behavior for Trump in order to use against him for issues of impeachment. Let's take a look at some of this. So the first thing I want to hit on, this was characterized from the standpoint of Cohen. God, that's way too long. That's way too long to start it off. But nevertheless, the Republicans in this went with the idea of trying to characterize Cohen as essentially a crook, a liar, a turncoat, a guy that would turn on his own client. He's working with Donald Trump and he's recording his own client, and then he turns around and he stabs his own client in the back. This guy's a rat, and he's such a rat that you can't believe anything that he's saying. That's essentially the characterization that Republicans are making of Cohen. Jim Jordan starts the hearing off putting a knife in Cohen. Let's listen.
And with that, I yield to the distinguished gentleman, the ranking member of our committee, Mr. Jordan.
Mr. Chairman, point of parliamentary inquiry.
Yes.
To the point that
Mr. Jordan is recognized. Mr. Jordan is recognized for his opening statement.
Mr. Chairman, here we go. Here we go. Your first big hearing, your first announced witness, Michael Cohen. I want everyone in this room to think about this. The first announced witness for the 116th Congress is a guy who is going to prison in 2 months for lying to Congress. Mr. Chairman, your chairmanship will always be identified with this hearing. And we all need to understand what this is. This is the Michael Cohen hearing presented by Lanny Davis. That's right. Lanny Davis choreographed the whole darn thing. The Clintons' best friend, loyalist, operative, Lanny Davis put this all together. You know how we know? He told our staff. He told the committee staff. He said the hearing was his idea. He selected this committee. He had to talk Michael Cohen into coming. And most importantly, he had to persuade the chairman to actually have it. He told us it took 2 months to get that job done, but here we are. He talked him into it. This might be the first time someone convicted of lying to Congress has appeared again so quickly in front of Congress. Certainly, it's the first time a convicted perjurer has been brought back to be a star witness in a hearing. And there's a reason this is the first, because no other committee would do it. Think about this. With Mr. Cohen here, this committee, we got lots of lawyers on this committee. This committee is actually encouraging a witness to violate attorney-client privilege. Mr. Chairman, when we legitimize dishonesty, we delegitimize this institution. We're supposed to pursue the truth, but you have stacked the deck against the truth. We're only allowed to ask certain questions. Even with that amendment you just told us about, well, Russia's now on the table. You initially told us we can't ask questions about the special counsel, can't ask questions about the Southern District of New York, can't ask questions about Russia. Nope. Nope. Only subjects we can talk about are ones you think are going to be harmful to the President of the United States. And the answers to those questions are going to come from a guy who can't be trusted. Here's what the U.S. Attorney said about Mr. Cohen. While Mr. Cohen enjoyed a privileged life, his desire for ever greater wealth and influence precipitated an extensive course of criminal conduct. Mr. Cohen committed four distinct federal crimes over a period of several years. He was motivated to do so by personal greed and repeatedly used his power and influence for deceptive ends, but the Democrats don't care. They don't care. They just want to use you, Mr. Cohen. You're their patsy today. They got to find somebody, somewhere, to say something so they can try to remove the president from office. Because Tom Steyer told him to. Tom Steyer, last week, organized a town hall. Guess where? Chairman Nadler's district in Manhattan. 2 nights ago, Tom Steyer organized a town hall. Guess where? Chairman Cummings' district in Baltimore. The best they can find to start this process, Michael Cohen. Fraudster, a cheat, convicted felon, and in 2 months a federal inmate. Well, actually, they didn't find him. Laney Davis found him. I'll say one thing about the Democrats. They stick to the playbook. Remember how all this started. The Clinton campaign hired Perkins Coie law firm, who hired Glenn Simpson, who hired a foreigner, Christopher Steele, who put together the fake dossier that the FBI used to go get a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. But when that whole scheme failed and the American people said, we're going to make Donald Trump president, they said, we got to do something else. So now, Clinton loyalist, Clinton operative Laney Davis has persuaded the chairman of the Oversight Committee to give a convicted felon a forum to tell stories and lie about the President of the United States so they can all start their impeachment process. Mr. Chairman, we are better than this. We are better than this.
You all get the point. That's how the hearing started. He started the hearing. He went to put a knife in Michael Cohen starting off. And for the most part, the Republicans stayed on script with this. Here's the catch. He's not wrong. I mean, ultimately, this did start with this idea of Trump-Russia collusion. They haven't been able to demonstrate Trump-Russia collusion. And they have moved from this notion of Trump-Russia collusion into just anything that they can use to hit Donald Trump over the head with. That doesn't necessarily mean that what Cohen is saying he's lying about in this particular point. It doesn't necessarily mean that Cohen is telling the truth on all these points. But let's be clear. The Democrats have a clear incentive into using whatever they can to take down Trump. And if that is Cohen, essentially a convicted perjurer that's going to be an inmate in a few months, then that is what they would use, because that is what the political climate to some degree calls for. Lefties want them to deal with real issues. Lefties look at the problem of Donald Trump getting elected as being somewhat of a systemic one, of economic injustice and political alienation. We want to deal with the problem at the root of the problem to some degree. Dealing with the system that is producing these outcomes. The Democratic Party has taken the perspective that we're going to use just politics as opposed to dealing with the root of the problem. Now, that said, you can do both. Sanders is probably an example of somebody that does both, that goes for the root of the problem while simultaneously using the politics of the moment in order to attack Trump. I guess my point in this is, from a political standpoint, all of the incentives go in the direction of the Democrats using whatever political angle that they can. And in this case, they've created a political opportunity of finding what they can on Trump, with the door being open from the Trump-Russia collusion conspiracy. What he's saying is not necessarily wrong. I'm just saying it doesn't necessarily mean that what Cohen is saying is wrong. Yes, I've said it looks like one of the show trials, but it doesn't necessarily mean that what Cohen is saying is wrong. So let's keep going. So the Democrats take a different tack. From their perspective, they're trying to rehabilitate Cohen, rehabilitate the image of Cohen, and these kind of flares of, a man who's turning around and saw the wrong of his ways and is turning around and is coming to justice and is being honest now because of what has taken place. Fact of the matter is, Cohen is being motivated by what has taken place, even though it doesn't necessarily mean that he's lying. Let's be clear, the situation has changed for Cohen. Cohen had no issue, despite of all the bad things that he said about Donald Trump in this particular hearing. He was working with the guy. He continued to work with the guy. And whatever you want to call those things bad things, he was engaging in those bad things year after year after year. The rehabilitation of him at this point is a direct result of him going to jail and a direct result of what has taken place to him. So, let's be clear. There is political pressure that is being applied to him in this situation. Whether or not somebody is directing him what to say or not It is political pressure being applied to him that has changed his perspective of the world as such that he'll be out here attacking Donald Trump. And yes, the Democrats are going to use whatever Cohen is going to tell him to try to take Trump out, particularly if there's some kind of illegality that Cohen is bringing up. One last point on this. I'm bothered by this. I don't particularly like Trump, but I'm bothered by this idea of a lawyer telling on their client in this way. I'm even bothered by this idea of the lawyer taping their client. This is problematic to me. If there is a such thing as attorney-client privilege, all of this seems to be out the window the moment that they've put pressure on him to essentially ignore the fact that there was attorney-client privilege. I'm just saying, this bothers me from a somewhat of a legal standpoint. So Democrats are trying to rehabilitate the image. I want to go into the stories themselves that have been pushed forth on the American public by the media, pushing with this idea of Russia-Trump conspiracy. Again, this hearing had nothing to do with Trump and Russia conspiracy, even though the door that was open from the Russia-Trump conspiracy allowed this hearing to take place. This hearing is amazing in what Cohen is saying that Trump has been doing over the course of his life. But the stories themselves that have been put forth on the public have been wrong. And Cohen,
I yield back.
it becomes clear that they're wrong just by what Cohen is saying here. So the first thing, BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed comes out with a bombshell article saying that Cohen Trump directed Cohen to go out and lie to the American public. That he didn't lie because he lied because Donald Trump, the President of the United States, directed him to lie. This is an impeachable offense. This was one of the things that got Nixon impeached. And if this was true, this would have been a momentous bombshell. Mueller takes the extraordinary step of coming out and saying that story is not true. And here, in this testimony, Cohen also does it. So right here. So let's go with the first one. BuzzFeed. Cohen directed Trump to lie. So let's see. Let me find the exact one, because there's a lot of these. There's so many of these. And each one... Here it is. Oh, where is it? There's so many of these. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm sorry. No. I had all of these things lined up. I'll clear this. I'll get rid of this part after the video goes up. I'm sorry, guys. No. Okay, right here.
Correct? You stated that Trump never directed you to lie to Congress. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Then what was BuzzFeed talking about? BuzzFeed came up with that story and pushed that story big time. All the media organizations went with BuzzFeed reporting on this. And right here, just one question. It's demolished.
You stated that Trump never directed you to lie to Congress. Is that correct?
That's correct.
BuzzFeed got it wrong. I don't think BuzzFeed retracted that story, but BuzzFeed has got it wrong. They misunderstood something that they might have got. Let me let the entirety of this play out. So I think I'm going to go with what BuzzFeed might have heard on this.
Stated that Trump never directed you to lie to Congress. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Therefore, you lied to Congress on your own accord and then admitted to lying to Congress, correct?
I've already stated my piece on that. I knew what he wanted me to do. I was staying on party line.
But he never directed you to lie to Congress.
He did not use those words, no.
Now, what BuzzFeed might have gotten and what BuzzFeed might have jumped to was, I stayed on party line. I knew what he wanted me to do. And BuzzFeed jumped the shark and go with Donald Trump directed Cohen to lie, which Cohen has just said is not true. There's a difference between I know what he wants me to do, I'm in his mind, as opposed to this person told me exactly what to say. Cohen has put a knife in BuzzFeed's story on whether or not Donald Trump directed them to lie. Let's go to another one. Prague.
In your evidence that you provided this.
Let's go with another one. Let's go with the Prague one. So, if you remember, everyone in the Steele dossier.
Also asked the Trump.
In the Steele dossier, there was a claim that Cohen went to Prague. Listen to Rachel Maddow. Rachel Maddow goes into a conspiracy theory.
When he got reimbursement for that, for the illegal payoff, he also asked the Trump organization to pay him back $50,000 for, quote, tech services. And prosecutors say in the criminal information that that $50,000 claim, quote, in fact, Cohen had solicited from a technology company during and in connection with the campaign. Michael Cohen supposedly wasn't part of the campaign at all. So under what circumstances would he have been spending a nice round $50,000 on something tech-related that in fact was for the campaign, that he would later seek reimbursement for from the Trump organization? He sought that reimbursement for that $50,000 in tech expenditures right alongside the reimbursement he was already getting from them for his illegal cash payoff to Stormy Daniels, the one that he's now going to do prison time for. We don't know what that $50,000 was that Michael Cohen laid out to benefit the campaign and then he was paid back for by the Trump organization. We don't know what that was. But I will note for the record, just because you should know this is out there, that what Michael Cohen is accused of in the Steele dossier is meeting with Kremlin representatives in August and September 2016 to discuss, quote, deniable cash payments to operatives who were participating in the anti-Clinton hacking campaign organized by the Russian government. Quote, according to Redacted, the agenda comprised questions on how deniable cash payments were to be made to hackers who had worked in Europe under Kremlin direction against the Clinton campaign and various contingencies for covering up those operations. So he was there to discuss how to pay for the Russian hacking effort, according to the Steele dossier. If that really happened, is that something you might bill to the Trump organization as tech services?
All right, so Rachel Maddow goes with the idea that Michael Cohen was in Prague because of, quote unquote, paying off some kind of Russia effort in order to attack Hillary Clinton in the election. Fair enough, okay? That's one idea about what Cohen might have been doing in Prague. But here's the thing. On the record, under testimony, he's asked whether or not he's been to Prague. And his answer will likely not surprise you. Let me find it. Give me 1 second. All right, let's flip. Let's see. Party line. Went with that one. Republicans. No. Right here.
I've never been to the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
All right. Rachel Maddow says it's possible that Cohen went to Prague because Cohen wanted to pay off the Russians for some kind of effort to attack Hillary Clinton. On record, on congressional record, meaning if he's saying this on congressional record and Mueller in his investigation finds that they've lied on record, that would be a problem, right? So he's stating something on congressional record, congressional testimony.
I've been to Prague.
I've never been to Prague.
Never have.
I've never been to the Czech Republic.
Yield my balance my time.
Have you ever been to Prague? No. No, I've never been to Prague. So
You have been.
the conspiracy that Rachel Maddow has weaved someone falls apart. And make sure people saw that again. People see that again. Make sure.
You ever been to Prague?
I've never been to Prague.
Never have.
I've never been to the Czech Republic.
You're my...
That's 2. BuzzFeed's article, Dismantle. Have you ever been to Prague? No. An element of the Steele dossier, completely dismantled. Again, he's putting this on congressional testimony. Here's the other part. Roger Stone. The argument here is that there was a conversation between Roger Stone and Donald Trump. Listen to what he says about this, because people keep bringing up this idea that Roger Stone has something to do with the campaign. So right here we are.
No.
So I want to ask you about Roger Stone's phone call to the president. First of all, was that on speakerphone? Is that what you indicated?
Yes, so Mr. Trump has a black speakerphone that sits on his desk.
Right.
He uses it quite often because with all the number of phone calls he gets.
Now, in
That's
January of this year, 2019, the New York Times asked President Trump if he ever spoke to Roger Stone about these stolen emails, and President Trump answered, and I quote, "No, I didn't. I never did." Was that statement by President Trump true?
No, it's not accurate.
And can you please describe for us, to the best of your recollection, you were present, exactly what Mr. Stone said to Mr. Trump?
It was a short conversation, and he said, Mr. Trump, I just want to let you know that I just got off the phone with Julian Assange, and in a couple of days, there's going to be a massive dump of emails that's going to severely hurt the Clinton campaign.
And
This seems damning, right? There's a massive cache of emails that are going to come out that is going to damage the Hillary Clinton campaign, and that Donald Trump was on the phone with Roger Stone to do so. I don't have any, I don't doubt that he maybe not necessarily be lying about this with Donald Trump on the phone with Roger Stone talking about it. I don't even doubt, per se, that Donald Trump would lie to Congress about this, or lie when people ask him about this, because he's trying to get rid of any tether, and if he's considering what's taking place a witch hunt, then you can kind of imagine that he doesn't necessarily want to add any elements to the witch hunt. So, I don't necessarily begrudge him for saying no on this one when a lot of the stuff has been made out of whole cloth. Here's the problem. Nothing that's said here really gives you any information on whether or not WikiLeaks was in touch with Roger Stone. WikiLeaks has said that was completely untrue. Julian Assange, for the most part, this is not true. I've had no conversation with Roger Stone. I don't interact with Roger Stone in this way. Roger Stone is lying. Roger Stone is making something up in order to make himself seem more relevant. WikiLeaks makes the point that for Roger Stone to say, look, this is coming out within a few days, WikiLeaks had already forecast weeks in advance when the stuff was going to come out. Meaning Roger Stone, even if what he's saying is absolutely flat fact true, that Roger Stone was on the phone with Donald Trump saying so forth, you had to believe Roger Stone in this. And Roger Stone had no information that the rest of the public didn't have, seeing as WikiLeaks had already forecasted that it was going to put this information out in advance. Just saying. So this is not a hit on WikiLeaks at all. This is no new information. This is Roger Stone essentially being a con artist and is doing things in order to make himself relevant. When he's coming out of the trials, putting the Nixon sign and all this other stuff, the news media is raising up the level of a con artist as opposed to listening to WikiLeaks, who's saying we have had no contact with Roger Stone. WikiLeaks makes this argument themselves. Statement on Michael Cohen's testimony to Congress, WikiLeaks publisher Julian Assange has never had a telephone call with Roger Stone. WikiLeaks publicly teased its pending publications when Hillary Clinton published greater than 30,000 of her emails on March 16, 2016. He had no information that the rest of the public didn't have. Even if the conversation took place, Roger Stone was making himself seem more relevant to what he actually was. If Donald Trump would have just looked online, he would have seen that WikiLeaks was going to come up with this information. Just saying. Also, supposedly Julian Assange was in the embassy having a conversation with Roger Stone. I would imagine that the intelligence service would have leaked this information already if this information existed. We're to believe that that a telephone call like that would take place, and that the line that Julian Assange is talking on is somehow not being tapped, That's nonsense. I'm sorry, that is nonsense. This doesn't put a knife in this, but at the very least, it gets across that, based on even Cohen's own testimony, that Roger Stone didn't have information that the rest of the public didn't have. Cohen may not put a knife in this, but at the same token, he doesn't help its cause. Just saying. Because he's saying that this conversation took place with a 2-day span. Roger Stone didn't have any additional information, particularly if it was a 2-day span, like Cohen is testifying. That doesn't help their cause. Fourth point. The reason that they lied about the building plans, because a lot of stuff is made about Donald Trump and this plans for the Moscow thing, that building, the tower. And Cohen goes into why Donald Trump lied about this. And the reason that Donald Trump lied about this is essentially the reason that I said Donald Trump lied about this prior. That ultimately he didn't think he was going to win the presidency, and there was a potential lot of money to be made, and there was no point in leaving money on the table. Meaning, if I'm going to lose the presidency, why on earth would I scuttle this deal? At the end of the presidency, when after I lose it, I can go back to the deal and make a ton of money on this. I can make a ton of cash. Again, a business relationship, not Russia is controlling, Trump is an animatronic puppet. A business relationship. It's absolutely foreseeable that a businessman would try to make as much money as that businessman can and would not want to leave it on the table if he didn't think he was going to win the presidency. Cohen makes the same point. And mind you, Cohen, again, is not doing Trump any favors with this particular testimony. But in many cases, again, it's dismantling the Trump stuff. Let's see, where is it? Let's see, ongoing investigations. I'm going to go through some of these other ones, by the way. I'm just going to do that in a separate video. Because some of the stuff that he's saying is amazing. No. Like I said, I'll cut this out afterwards. There's a heated exchange where they're saying that something is racist, and the people get caught back and forth where they're fighting over that. Like, it becomes a really big deal. No. Here we are. All right. So, Trump Tower project. Now, a lot is made about the Trump Tower project, and it's like, oh, Cohen is lying about the Trump Tower project because something to do with Trump and Russia collusion. Trump lied about it because Trump wants to make a lot of cash, and he didn't think he was going to win the presidency. And the most shocked person on that day, that cold day in November, was Donald Trump himself, because Donald Trump didn't think he was going to win. Let's hear this part. Guys, I'll get to the super chats afterwards. Give me a moment.
One other thing that I had said in my statement is that when it came to the Trump Tower Moscow project, it was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and we never expected to win the election. So this was just business as usual.
We didn't expect to win. It was worth millions of dollars. We didn't want to leave millions of dollars on the table. It's a pragmatic point of view. You may call it to some degree duplicitous or maybe even potentially illegal, but pragmatic all the same. Part of the problem here is that they're attacking Donald Trump on something that didn't exist. And if you're being attacked on something that didn't exist, would your first instinct be to laugh? Your first instinct was Donald Trump, and you're thinking they're already attacking me on something that's not true. I don't want to feed the fire on this particular front. So what do? Donald Trump goes into this idea of hiding various elements of it. Again, because the premise of it is not true in and of itself. This makes sense if you're looking at it from that context. But everybody's looking at it from the context of there's something going on between Trump and Russia in regards to this kind of collusion with the election itself, and so there has to be something there. As opposed to, what if this is a conspiracy theory? What if there's not anything there? And what would the individual at the center of that conspiracy theory, when all of the elements that are used, things that took place, may have something to do with business, but is being used in the context of some kind of election scandal with another government? How would the person behave? Especially if you're Donald Trump and you lie flagrantly. Anyway.
And one other thing that I had said.
So there's that part. The reason that Donald Trump didn't want to leave money on the table. My point is this. In one story after the next, they've put forth this idea. One news article after the next. Some element of the Trump and Russia collusion. And that there's one story that says, oh, we got him, finally, we got him. And the story falls apart. Cohen was the guy that they brought up in order to, again, hit Donald Trump on the various issues, on anything that they can hit Donald Trump on. But the thing that's woefully missing here, and the thing that takes place here, is even though they get their pound of blood out of Donald Trump, they also get destruction of various elements of the stories that have come out that were bombshells at the time that Cohen is completely and entirely putting a knife in. Just saying. I'm going to have another video that goes through additional elements here. In fact, this is... No, I'll do that in another video. This video is specific to showing the stories that have come out with the Russiagate conspiracy and how those stories, for the most part, were dismantled by Cohen in this testimony. Again, Cohen has said things that hurt Trump in this testimony. Cohen has said things of potential illegality by Trump in this testimony. Cohen has even made the point that there are investigations into Trump that haven't necessarily come to light in regards to the public. He said a lot of things here. It went for 6 hours. But from the standpoint of the Russiagate conspiracy, he is putting a knife in the various elements of this conspiracy. So, just saying. Lori Glennie. Who would believe someone who dresses like a comic book villain? Roger Stone is a joke. Embassy with a video and audio never happened. Yes, Laura. Agreed. Full stop. Agreed. Charles Calvin. Kim.com knew about WikiLeaks. Yeah, this is... They believe this because it fits a narrative. I'm going to go over the video of Cenk Uygur and Aaron Matei. Aaron Matei eats him alive. And he eats him alive for the exact same reason that you guys could not prove an element that Trump was colluding with Russia on this case. You can't even prove the element that there is anything to show for it. Meaning that you need to, A, show that it took place. Didn't. And even still, you need to show the works of that. Meaning, what materially was gained out of that. And you can't even show that because Donald Trump has been more hawkish on Obama on various aspects of Russia. Like, across the board, fails on its face. But it works because you have Democrats that don't care if it's true or not. They just push for it. You have a media that hates Donald Trump's guts, so they're more inclined to push for those type of things. You have a media that also profits magnificently off of this particular narrative of events in this particular story. It's interest, it's self-interest of a political and a media class that allows this to take place. Hillary Clinton came out with an overarching Hail Mary that she didn't lose because of Trump and Russia. She lost. Didn't lose because of her own failure. She lost because of Trump and Russia. The media ran with that story. And it even was able to garner political, you could say political dynamite when Donald Trump fired Comey. And people said, oh my God, what does the president have to hide? At which point it goes from a conspiracy theory to having a conspiracy theory with political clout behind it. And then you end up with a Mueller investigation, you end up with counterintelligence investigations, all those others. Ultimately, the previous administration was spying on the political opposition. That in and of itself looks entirely bad. But in the same thing like the Clinton Whitewater case, you move from one element and you use that for political effect in order to garner other advantages. It's like if you're playing chess and you put a pin on a person, and because the piece is pinned, the piece can't necessarily do the things the piece would typically do. In which case, you find an opportunity or a tactical opportunity to use the fact that you have that pin in order to make other gains. Meaning you're transferring one advantage into another advantage, because the advantage that you have in and of itself is not enough to necessarily win the game. You're looking for ways to transfer the energy into something else that can get points. So maybe you can't necessarily win the game on this pin, but maybe you get an exchange. Hey, maybe you even get a whole piece. But tactical opportunities present themselves based on the initial activities, if that makes sense. From a purely political standpoint, I understand why somebody would do it. But from a greater country standpoint, this is grossly dangerous. I mean, you're talking about nuclear power nations, countries that have 90% of the nuclear weapons on this planet. And they've decided to pick a fight with this other country and use it for political expedience at home and pushing this fight. They want to hit Trump, and so they use all of these elements, this kind of red baiting. Whereas Republicans use immigrants, Democrats use Russians. It's racist on its face, and yet it still takes place. People were talking about a hack that didn't take place was equivalent to an attack, something like a new 9/11 or like a Pearl Harbor. These are the things that these guys were saying here. I mean, this was utterly amazing in regards to the rhetoric that was being used around this. We interfere in all of these other people's elections, or in elections all across the world. And yet, Facebook and Twitter ads. Facebook and Twitter ads. You're talking about a hack, but the fact of the matter is we've seen no real evidence for what they're considering to be a hack. Prague resistance or progress. Oh, that's funny. Progress. I'm just waiting for the announcement that the Center of Journalism built by Richmond and David Brock that is going to expose Michael Cohen's trip to the Czech Republic, the Center for American Prague, Prague, RES, RESS. That's hilarious. Butter emails. But who instructed Hillary Clinton to lie to the United States population about her record, her position, her funding, her connections, her health conditions, her emails, her accents? She mysteriously has an accent everywhere she shows up. And her failures. Hashtag, yes, she did. Preparations. But is he wrong on preparations, especially... But is he wrong on preparations, especially H? Preparation H, the hemorrhoid cream. Fucking hilarious. Katy Perry. If poor people need help, why can't they just release a #1 hit album and buy another mansion? I can't dance to a talk about the class struggle, Jamal. That's not very fireworky. Stop being a plastic bag. Stop being a plastic bag. Why can't those poor people just make a hit album? Why? Why can't they just make a hit album? Ron Paul, did it possible for a white woman to marry a black man? I don't know if I like the cut of that jib. I didn't fight all those years to end the wars just so a white woman can marry Juice WRLD. No, sir, don't like the cut of that jib at all. What the hell? What the hell? All right, fair enough. That is fucking hilarious. Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. This video is going extremely long, but again, it was a 6-hour video. And I wanted to go through each of these, and maybe I'll cut this at a certain point, but, I wanted to make the point that ultimately, all of these articles that were coming out that was attacking Trump on these really severe elements of the case. I mean, this is not trivial elements. The Prague visit, the Roger Stone thing, whether or not the BuzzFeed article about Trump directing Cohen to lie and completely destroy. All of these were destroyed. The reason that Trump lied or that he lied to Congress on this particular front didn't necessarily want to expose it. It wasn't because there was anything nefarious with Trump and Russia. It had everything to do with a business relationship and wanted to make cash. There is no Trump and Russia conspiracy, at least not that I've seen up to this point. Is it possible that Russia could hack the emails? Yes. Is that what took place? That they've proven it? No. And fact of the matter is, there's still this weird element here that they're talking about Russia hacking the emails, exposing the fact that that Hillary Clinton cheated Bernie Sanders. That is always such an odd element to me that's completely missed. It is also an odd element to me that Hillary Clinton purchasing foreign assistance, meaning dirt on her opponent from foreign assistance, for some reason gets a pass while they're screaming at the height of their lungs that Trump is colluding with Russia, even though they have nothing to show for Trump colluding with Russia. I'm just saying, it's nonsense. It's utter nonsense. All right, I'm going to end this here because I want to go to the Trump-Russia stuff. Jamal was ready, top chat from last year, right? I remember that exchange. Jamal was reading top chat from last year. Yeah, I always read chats. JT need to give up the backstory on the nickname. Seriously, Bean Juice Thomas. There was no story there. I don't have a Bean Juice Thomas. Bean Juice Thomas. Aaron put the knife with Jink in the Adam Schiff comment. He put a knife in Jink in that entire back and forth. I mean, Jink had no answers for the stuff that Aaron Matei was saying because Aaron Matei was right. Jink is looking at this through a very particular context, and Aaron Matei is looking at this from, you need to prove your point. You know, it's not that I doubt that Donald Trump has business relationships, but all of this, the argument, the basic argument was Donald Trump was colluding with Russia. That was the basic argument. And I say the basis of that argument is a conspiracy theory. They don't have anything to show for that. And they use that, however, for political opportunity in order to find other things that they can hit Donald Trump on. And that's exactly what they did here. So, let's do the Aaron Matei video next. Even though, yeah, let's do the Aaron Matei video next. And then I'll go to Cohen on this. And I think I want to do a video on David Pakman because David Pakman has not understood why people were taking issue with Bernie Sanders and his comments on Venezuela. So that should be an interesting video. I will see you guys shortly. It takes a while for me to queue this up just because there's so many clips, but I'll be back in probably 10, 15 minutes, however long it takes to queue it up. So I'll see you guys shortly. And by the way, thank you all for your support of the show. You guys make this show work. We've been pushing hard for the patron appreciation. That show is going to still be on Sunday at 1 p.m. The people who are patrons essentially get access to the previous patron appreciation shows. We're putting those up and we're trying to give additional content to patrons or people who essentially support the content. It is a video. My wife and I do multiple topics throughout the course of the week. And we interact and chill with the audience and all this other stuff. It's good fun. And the last few have been really, really good. So I enjoy her being with me on this video. She enjoys it. And the audience seems to get a kick out of Miss Thomas being here. So she will be here on Sunday at 1 p.m. and that will be for viewer appreciation. Also, to put a bug in people's ear, I'm trying to figure out something to do for the 20,000 subscriber. I'm up to 19,300 subscribers, over that many. And by the time I hit 20,000, I want to have kind of a 20,000 show. I don't know what that is. I would love for that to be a live broadcast, but I'm not quite sure if enough people will be interested in coming to a live show of the soapbox. Because again, it's one part of the nation and people are all over the world and all over the country that watch the show. So let me know if any of you will be interested in coming to like the Richmond or Washington, D.C. area to see a live show of the Progressive Soapbox. Depending on my interests, we might try to make that work. So I'll leave it here. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all. I'll see you in a few.